let's talk about platforms
Yeah.
now. Consoles and computers and whatnot, right? So the first thing on my list, and it's in no real order. It's just what came into my mind at the time when I was structuring this thing is SNES. Now I never really owned the SNES. I kind of had one for a while because a mate borrowed it onto me
Yeah.
for a while, and we had access to one in uni and whatnot. But for me, the SNES was all about two games. The first game for me was Street Fighter
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
And the second game was Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And I know some people, will talk about Super Mario World, and
Yeah.
they're definitely, noteworthy. But that was what it was all about for the SNES.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on the Street Fighter 2 kind of stuff. And I've already mentioned the Super Mario Kart, Super Mario World, Vegas stakes for me. One other one that was quite interesting for me on that was, I think Star Fox, I think was the very first kind of 3D kind of game that was really coming out. And I think they were pushing it from a boundaries kind of perspective.
Yeah, use that FX.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Interesting stuff. I mean, what they could do with the consoles at that time. And then Mega Drive is even more loose because, I had very little access to the Mega Drive. If I'm being honest.
I think same for me on that one. So I was a SNES. I definitely grew up as a SNES rather than with a Mega Drive. And obviously friends would have a Mega Drive as well. So, we'd obviously spend time at each other's place to play the different platforms.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but for me, on the Mega Drive, it was Sonic. He's an easy pick, right? I mean, Sonic was a mascot.
Yeah.
Sonic was like, it was a platformer, but not as we knew it.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, most platformers worked and were designed very much like a Super Mario World.
Yeah, they all...
At that time, I mean, really, they kind of all did that. They all kind of went at the same pace, pickups, same sort of thing.
But Sonic was unique in terms of that additional speed it brought to the game.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And I think with Mega Drive, I think if anything that I would have played on there would have been stuff like Streets of Rage, really. Yeah, those sorts of games.
Yeah, Streets of Rage, very noteworthy.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, because back then I used to love my shoot 'em ups, and it was Thunder Force. I think it was Thunder Force 2 on Mega Drive, and I thought, wow, looks better than anything that I've played on other platforms. And I said, wow, this is actually very impressive.
Yeah.
Now moving on, and this is a kind of personal favourite sort of category, 16-bit computers, and really I'm thinking Amiga and Atari. I never owned an Atari ST, so we can, unless you did that, we can just totally ignore that.
Yeah, I had a good friend I used to play the Atari kind of games on, but I spent most of my time on the Amiga I had.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a much beloved machine, and unfortunately, a bit mismanaged. And maybe that's another talking point for us. But for me, on the Amiga, and there are so many noteworthy games here, I think it has to be Turrican 2 for me, and then Speedball 2.
Yeah. Oh, that was the one I was going to mention in sports. I completely forgot about it.
Yeah. I thought you were going to do it because we were talking about the Xenon 2 and the bitmaps. I've already mentioned Kickoff. So I'm going to have to mention Sensible Soccer.
Yes. Oh, then this... okay.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's so tough, isn't it?
As soon as you mentioned that, it's like then goes on to, Cannon Fodder and all the
other ones. So many, right?
Yeah.
And the last game I will mention on Amiga is really the first Shadow of the Beast. And I'm not mentioning it because it's actually a good game. Because the reality is, it wasn't a good game. Yeah. But it made such an impact on me.
Yeah.
The music. I still remember the music.
Yeah.
I could hum it. And I just remember the first levels, parallax scrolling. For its time, it just looked beautiful. It just looked beautiful.
Yeah.
It was a Cyberpunk 2077 of its day.
Yeah. That's
how you need to think about it.
Yeah. I think my kind of other ones, I mentioned already quite a few on the ones earlier, but the Supercars 2. One that I didn't mention, I completely forgot, was Golden Axe. Actually, I played a lot of Golden Axe on Amiga.
Brilliant on Amiga, actually.
Syndicate I mentioned, Afterburner I mentioned. One other classic, I don't know if you ever played this one, but IK Plus, I played to death.
Yes, IK Plus, brilliant game. Brilliant game. I wish I could name them all, right?
There's just so many
IK
of them.
Plus, brilliant. Yeah, especially the groin hit. If you remember that,
Yeah.
the sound they made, what a classic.
Yeah.
So many games, good games on that machine. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Time to move on to PC.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, even harder.
Yeah.
Just as hard, I think.
Do you want to go first,
Just as
Joe?
hard. Yeah, I'm going to try and go first. This is actually almost impossible.
Yeah, because it's been there for so long. We'd almost have to do it by, like by decade. I think is your.
Yeah, no, you would have to do it by decade, wouldn't you? I mean, like, but I'm going to say Duke Nukem 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say this is because there was so much hype about Quake at the time. But for me, Duke Nukem 3D was the superior game.
Yeah.
Maybe the technology, wasn't as good. It certainly wasn't, the full 3D environment that maybe Quake was. But it was just a much better experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second game I'm going to mention is Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the first moments I had in a video game where you had kind of like a moment in it where you thought, that's so clever. And it wasn't about the technology.
Yeah.
It was the scenario they put you in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the training mission where you had that giant robot.
Yeah.
You could move objects around and chuck things and all that kind of stuff, right? That was, very, very clever.
Yeah.
And then the first Crisis.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Even though it was more or less impossible to play on any PC at the time, right? That game was so impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was a little bit underrated as a game as well.
It was, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that. I mean, it was just not only about the technology. It was an underrated game.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed Crisis a lot, both the single player and the multiplayer. So it was a great game as far as I could, for the amount of time I've spent on it.
And the last game I'm going to mention, Warcraft 3. Because as an RTS, I think that really it had a bit of a story to it. You know what I mean? I thought to myself, well, this is a story that I kind of, I'm interested in. It's an RTS, and that's the first time, and I think in an RTS that I saw some real kind of role playing elements to it.
Yeah.
And the whole kind of world and what they created was so impressive.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so impressive.
The lore, the character building, it was huge, right? It was.
Yeah.
And then it then obviously then spawned World of Warcraft and all the other stuff off it. So
yeah,
so important. Kind of defining that platform really.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's some modern picks. I'm sure there are quite a few, but something that really, really sticks out. I'm trying to think. Yeah, nothing sticks out. Now I think I'm gonna have to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Those are gonna definitely be my picks.
Yeah, I think for me, for PC, I think you've already mentioned it, but the Half-Life 1 and 2 for me, definitely, kind of really defining. And I would say on the similar vein, things like Portal then made a huge kind of step forward on what they could do with the technology and the ideas and some of the concepts, which is a bit more kind of new thinking. And similarly, Crisis, that was one of those that really did push your PC. So you'd have to spec it correctly, or just expect it to fry your your CPU and GPU during that time. The old classics, the things like Mech Commander, I loved that game back in the day. And then the Command and Conquer stuff, I think, was predominantly a PC. I guess most of the RTSs were predominantly PC, and they kind of still are, I guess. You could probably get RTSs on console, because I think that was the shift as well, wasn't it? I think Red Alert 3, I think, was the first one that was kind of like on console as well.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of... That was the one that was actually quite cutscene heavy. Yeah, definitely.
And there's just other games like, World of Warcraft, I think, was so MMO kind of genre defining. I guess you could argue, I play Dota and the sort of the MOBA kind of scene, but you could argue League of Legends and things like that have been quite, pretty significant in that kind of space as well. What was it? Ultimate Online. Eve, I guess, is probably, if you were to argue, full MMO type stuff. I don't think it's on any other platform, Eve.
Yeah, Eve, really impressive. No doubt about that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, those are my kind of PC picks, I think. I think covered most of them on the other ones.
And the next one, PlayStation. So I'm gonna say, obviously, Uncharted 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Uncharted 2. Just because before that game happened, there was very little on PS3 that you would say is noteworthy in terms of what does this hardware do?
Yeah.
What can it do?
Yeah.
You know? But that was extremely noteworthy.
Yeah, and it spawned the whole franchise from that, so yeah.
Yeah. I would also say the first Last of Us, again, extremely noteworthy.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, on PlayStation.
Yeah.
There was quite a few others. It's damn, it's hard.
Yeah, because a lot of them are kind of big IPs. There's so many games that we would have played over the time.
Yeah, there's so many, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think for my ones, I've got the obviously the Wipeout series, but I think one of the main things with that PlayStation 1 kind of introduced me to was the Final Fantasy series. You know, Final Fantasy 7,
of course.
9 is my all-time favorite of the Final Fantasies. Metal Gear Solid.
I've got to mention Metal Gear Solid because that on PlayStation 1. Was just absolutely amazing.
So many kind of new thinking,
crazy moments in that. I do you remember that boss fight in it where the guy's a telepath?
Oh, Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, Psycho Mantis. So he's basically reading your mind. Whatever you do, he knows your moves. And the way to basically get past that level was to actually swap controllers or something.
That's right. Yeah, move it on to the second slot.
Yeah. And that was just so. I mean, it was a silly thing, right? But it was just so clever.
There was some really clever stuff as well. I remember. It would read off your memory card, because that was back then. You had to. Your save games were on the little memory cards that you had to put on the front, right?
Yeah.
And he would read that you were playing X, Y, and Z game. So he would actually read.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So he would tell you. So you could I could read. You basically, the whole point is he could read your mind. But then he could also tell you what was on your machine.
Yeah, correct.
And there's other bits as well. I think in that one as well. In the very beginning, I think that you get you to enter in the codec kind of frequency, and the only way to get it was either you had the manual or it was on the back of the box or something. I can't remember which one it was, but you basically needed to have the physical case on the manual to get to the correct frequency, because it says refer to back of the case or something.
Yeah. But I just remember the music as well. The music, my God. All these memories are flooding back now. Just remember that game and I thought, oh my God, what a game that was. Do you remember Devil May Cry?
Oh, yeah.
The first Devil May Cry?
Yeah.
My God, the first Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
What a game.
Great game.
I mean, the look and feel of that thing and, the combat system.
Yeah.
And I think really, could go on and on, right? The first God of War, parking aside 2 and 3, right? But the first God of War with the opening sequence with those Hydras. Before, games weren't doing that. Because you didn't have this massive set piece right at the start of the game.
Yeah.
These massive set pieces would happen quite far into the game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Obviously, the violence. You know what I mean? Taking violence to a whole new level here, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then one of my favorite memories as well was also is on PlayStation 3, but Heavy Rain.
Heavy, yeah.
That was really good.
That was so unusual, that game.
Yeah, it's because it's that mix of game movie type thing where you're kind of just influencing the changes in it. So yeah, it's very different kind of interactive gaming versus which genre would you put that one in, right? So
very difficult, right? Very difficult. I mean, I do wonder, if the PS4 we've seen less of that. I'd have to sit down and think about it. I mean, I kind of doubt we have, but I mean, I just feel that the first party games are less.
Yeah.
They feel kind of as if they're less innovative. They all seem to be third person action or adventure games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But maybe they also spent more time on focusing on PlayStation VR and things like that on PS4. So
yeah, maybe so. Sony doesn't have infinite resources, no way.
Yeah.
One more game I'll kind of pin down on the PlayStation was Tekken 3.
Yeah.
Tekken 3, my god, that game, what an amazing game.
Yeah.
In terms of a beat 'em up. I played that game to an inch of its life. Alright, before we kind of like go too far PlayStation, because that could be another whole podcast by itself, obviously. Nintendo. What I'm going to say Nintendo is like, for me, it's going to be Metroid Prime. Top game. I mean, obviously I played that on the GameCube when I had my GameCube, and I still got my GameCube, but that's in cold storage at the moment. It's going to be F-Zero, especially on the GameCube. The GameCube version of F-Zero, for me, an astounding futuristic racer. I think better than Wipeout, in my view.
Well, its pace was actually quicker, I think, on F-Zero.
It's amazing, yeah, it's amazing. I would say any of the Mario Karts. And is there any more than that? I'm trying to think this through. I don't think so, Al. Because obviously I'm not a Switch player. And I'd love to be, but I'm not a Switch player. So whilst I had a Wii for a while, I didn't really much care for that. But again, there were some good titles on that. But yeah, I mean, some of the old school Nintendo stuff.
So I would say, I mentioned it earlier, but obviously the Zelda series, those ones.
Yeah, Zelda.
Wind Waker, I think was really great for me. Really enjoyed that one. You've already mentioned the Mario Karts. I've mentioned it already. Super Mario World, definitely for me, and Mario Sunshine. Oh, one of the things that was missing, and maybe on the fighting one, is like Smash Brothers Melee.
Oh, yeah, Smash Brothers. At least you didn't say Killer Instinct. Something like that, But yeah, I mean, like Nintendo, another company with a massive kind of amount of IP.
Actually, I tell you what, one of the things I've probably forgotten about completely is the fact that I played the Pokemon games on the small, on the Game Boys as well, the Game Boy Advance and
big IP.
Yeah. There's all those games they had on the DS. I don't know how many of those kind of touch kind of games. There's rhythm games, Professor Layton. There's a whole bunch of stuff that was on the DS that was really
the detective series or whatever it was.
Yeah, there was Phoenix Wright and all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah. That's a crazy amount of games, really. I mean, an IP that Nintendo have, but you can't name them all. Now, the Xbox, now this should be quite easy. And for me, it's just Halo. And maybe Gears, but Halo's my number one. That is a truly seismic game. The music of Halo, iconic. The gunplay,
I still have loads of memories of Halo 1. Absolutely enjoyed that game.
I mean, some people knock the story, with the flood and all of that, but I thought that story was pretty darn good. Basically, set the template for how all console shooters, first-person shooters, should be basically done.
I mean, I'm similar on that one. So the Halo, the Gears of War, and I would say if anything, just for competition, Forza, pushing it to Gran Turismo, things like that.
Oh yeah, they're actually number one now in my view. I mean, it's close, but I think they're number one. That's what they've been doing. Though the other game that I actually made an impact on me. Do you remember Panzer Dragoon?
I don't think I've ever played it, but I've definitely seen it. I think.
Yeah, the one on the first Xbox for me that was actually quite impactful. I don't know if we should talk about Sega. No, actually, we will talk about Sega.
We touched on the Mega Drive, but
Sega for me, Space Harrier.
Yeah,
people remember that, right? Virtual Fighter 2.
Oh yes,
Top game that. Top game. And what's the last one I will pick out?
Oh, I just realised something now that we've mentioned Sega, but more from the development side rather than the platform side.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I was going to say the Total War series.
Oh, that is Sega,
exactly. That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh my god, we've missed them at all the RTS.
Oh my god, yeah, it's too many, right? Total War, how did we miss that one? That it's worth mentioning now. That is Sega. Total War, PC gaming at its best. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think with Sega also, I'm going to be very specific about this one. The arcade version of Afterburner in the hydraulic cabinet.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of like name that.
Yeah.
Simply amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a bit sorry about what's happened to Sega. They, obviously years ago they pulled out of the kind of console market. And obviously it doesn't feel like they're the company they were.
Yeah.
So that's a real shame. If we can go back this far, 8-bit. 8-bit computers, 8-bit anything.
Yeah. Do you have any? Yeah, do you want to go for
I do.
Yeah.
I will go first because it was like on the Spectrum. There was this game. It was an arcade conversion actually. It was Karnov. Bit of a Ghosts and Goblins type game. That's what it was. On the C64, the game that I will call out would be Iridium. Basically a horizontal shooter. But top game. Probably one last game on the Amstrad that I kind of had an impact on me at the time.
Yeah.
Was Sorcery.
Yeah.
But again, there were quite a few. But I mean, I just remember those three actually.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, for me, it would be the sort of classic Super Mario, or actually the one memory I have, because I never had a NES as well, was Duck Hunt and the little shooting.
Believe me, that was very impressive. If you remember Operation Wolf, that was basically based on Duck Hunt, wasn't it? Really, when it's all said and done.
Well, I guess a lot of the kind of those kind of shooting games. Oh yes, I forgot about that. Time Crisis on PS1.
Time Crisis, light gun games, top game. Time Crisis. Do you remember that they had this? I think these were Sega games. They had the one with the ninjas.
Or the Gaiden or something.
Yeah. And they had House of the Dead. Do you remember that?
Yep.
But Time Crisis, what a top game. Namco. Basically when Namco was still Namco.
Yeah. Oh, that's just triggered another memory in my head. But we're going completely off. But like Resident Evil, we've not even mentioned. But Resident Evil, I played on PlayStation 1 a lot.
Horror genre.
Oh yeah, we've missed that completely.
Hill.
Silent Hill, yes.
Yeah, Silent Hill. and what was that? God, I've almost forgotten the name now. It's more or less a horror action game with a guy in that suit.
Which platform do you remember?
Multi-platform. Yeah, it's not old, but it'll come to me later. But I just can't. Yeah, I mean horror genre. Wow. So I think we need to basically start concluding this section. I think.
Yeah.
The two other questions that I have here, two other things on my list are, naming of one wow moment and naming of one the biggest letdown.
Oh.
Hard. And I think for this, right, you can only pick one.
Yeah. Okay. Biggest wow moment in my own gaming history, I guess. Okay, for me, and that's because I sank I don't know how many years of my life into it, but World of Warcraft, and one of the bosses that we took down after I don't know how many months of effort, that moment of succeedingly finally killing that boss with 40 other people, I just don't think I've ever had it ever again, really, on that one. So that was mine, my kind of main wow moment. And actually, wow, World of Warcraft, wow. I think it makes
very
sense.
apt, very apt.
Help yourself, Joe.
Wow moment wise, I think for me would be, I have to give it to Uncharted too. I do, because before that game came along, I didn't know that set pieces like that in games were even possible. Sitting there kind of one afternoon, I had this a friend of mine, we studied computer science together. He wasn't really if you like into this whole gaming or technology scene the way I was. But so he was a very difficult, it was a very hard date, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I would show him stuff and he'd say not impressed. Uncharted at the time was the only game I showed him where he was actually genuinely impressed. Yeah. And for me, right, like I said, I mean, I didn't know you could do this in a computer game, that you could have these sorts of set pieces. You could basically have a player doing what you have the player doing at that time. And that for me was a real wow moment.
Nice. Yeah.
So Al, how about the biggest letdown? I'm sure there've been many.
Oh, yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, I think thankfully I've managed to avoid most of the kind of the ones that kind of hype and then suddenly it's just not been that great. I would say my biggest letdown, and that may be because I was growing up as well at the point at that stage still really, was I kind of pre-bought Die Hard Trilogy 2.
Oh man!
Oh my god! I mean, Die Hard Trilogy 1, fantastic game. You've literally got 3 games in one, different genres, all of great quality, right? Well, maybe less so of number 3, but regardless, such a great game. Sank so many hours into that. But Die Hard Trilogy 2, oh my god, that was such a horrendous, buggy mess. That was just like, I think after that, that was the biggest letdown ever.
And we're about to talk about some buggy messes in a minute. Yeah,
true. Yeah, I think that was my biggest letdown, and it probably sinks with me because it's as I was growing up as well, so it was as a kid.
Yeah. Obviously, Die Hard's shrunk into obscurity, and I guess it does that because of
how bad
a buggy mess. People want to forget it. I'll tell you what my biggest letdown was this. I don't know if you recall this RTS game. I think it was 2150. This was back in the early days of 3D RTSs. And there was this sequel to it called 2160. All the marketing videos, the information we got, it just seemed totally the next big RTS. It was almost too good to be true. Yeah, and it was obviously too good to be true, right? The graphics were amazing for its time. And I convinced a number of my friends at the time, you gotta get this game. It looks amazing. It's the next big RTS. Trust me. So obviously, when it came out, we all popped down to the shop, got our version of 2160, and dude, it was an absolute letdown. In terms of base building and the fact that it had very diverse factions, that was all there.
Yeah.
But it just felt so. Parts of it felt so underdeveloped, right? And there were certain parts of the story they showed on the build up to this thing that really didn't even exist in the final game.
Yeah.
And it was just I don't know what happened. I mean, maybe they run out of money or something. It was just such a half-baked effort compared to what it could have been.
Yeah.
That was the most disappointing thing I recall anyway.
Yeah. I think it is as well when you built the hype with your friends and then and trying to get together on those things, and it's difficult.
Yeah, it's such a letdown. But thankfully, right, we've had Dawn of War after that. We had Supreme Commander after that.
The interesting thing is whether we can avoid that. Well, I mean, I've definitely not been pre-ordering games, to the same extent that I probably was back in those days, because now it's almost like you might as well wait for a review. You might as well wait for whatever buggy mess this is.
It got to a point for me, right, where I was so obsessed that I actually started to communicate to one of the developers about it. Because why is this happening? Why is that happening? Seriously, it got a bit comical.
Oh, okay. That just reminds me that actually, because I played so much Mech Commander 2 was another mess.
And honestly, I basically, at one point, because you can actually mod the game, at one point, I even considered modding the game myself. Because I thought, I want to right a wrong here. This is wrong. This game should be good.
Well, that'll be interesting too, because it also goes into the next topic, where some of that actually has been happening too.
I'm sure. I don't know if you remember also Supreme Commander 2. And again, that would have been my second letdown. That was such a scaled back version of the first game.
I
really didn't like it.
I was going to give you Crisis 2 as well.
I know about Crisis 3 was much better than but Crisis, scaled back, built for console.
It didn't even look as good as number 1. That was the thing. That was the disappointing part. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Can you believe it? Yeah, can you believe it? And Al, with that said, I think it's time to move on to our next topic.
Cool.